Good morning to everybody. Thank you so much for attending. I see a lot of people here today. This is really important for us, and a special thanks to the folks on the other side of the screen, because this is being streamed live. So thank you so much for that. So the topic is how to move data in real time for legacy systems on-premise to the cloud. When we are doing cloud onboarding, it's really important to think about how to move our data, our existing data on-premise, the most efficient and effective way. And that's what I'm going to talking about. So just a few words about me. So that's my name, Octávio Oliveira. I'm Portuguese. I work across EMEA. I have been in this data integration space for the last 15 years. I joined HVR 8 months ago. This is really my thing. I really like to do this kind of work with data integration. And I'm really happy to be here with you guys. And I've been working a lot in the Nordics in the last 10 years. And so I know that you have been, on top of the wave, adopting the cloud. And so I'm really thrilled to be talking about this today, about moving the data into the cloud. Right, so when you think about accelerating into the cloud, doing the cloud adoption, as I mentioned, you guys are on top of the wave. There are a few things that makes your decision, the rationales about moving to the cloud. The first one is security, for instance. And I put this on the top because usually when you think about security, well, you think about, I'm moving the data on-prem on my data center, outside of my data center into the cloud. But the thing is, the cloud, they are modern in terms of security tools. They have the best personnel that are dedicated 100% of security. So the chances are they will be more efficient detecting possible threats. So your data should be secure. And by the way, when using HVR, about moving the data from on-prem to the cloud, we assure that the data is encrypted on transit. So that's an extra security on top of that. Then scalability, of course. You can start small, and then you can grow according to your business. And this is really important for you, comparing to what if you have to do things on-prem, where you have to go into embarking this journey about understanding the type of hardware and software that you need, and then maybe aiming high or low. You don't know what will be the requirements at the end of or when you go into production. So this, you can start small and then you can grow. So scalability is really important, and the cloud can give you that. As well, flexibility, right? You could start with one type of technology and then move to the other without a great impact in your business as well. And of course, costs. You could start immediately. Again, you don't have to go into buy new hardware and software. You just have to swipe your credit card, and then you have a system that you can test, and it's ready, available immediately. And then the advantage of this are that you become more competitive, because this means agility for your business. So you'll be able to be more competitive in multiple situations. You will be able to generate new revenue streams, because your IT personnel will be dedicated to more business-oriented tasks towards the IT, of course. And but there are challenges when onboarding to the cloud, and I just go really quickly. Would like to go through this. So the first one is about which pieces of the data that I have on-prem should I move to the cloud. The chances are that you have terabytes of data and you have a lot of systems on-prem, and you have to make a decision about that. So this is one of the challenges. Then, which cloud technology will be the right for us? There are so many cloud technologies, and it's really hard to find the right one sometimes, right? So you need to be advised as well. And that's something we can give to you as well when we are talking about use cases. With the experience that we have, we can suggest and work with you what will be the best solution for you. And of course, you don't want to have to be locked in one cloud vendor, so the chances are that you will be in a multi-cloud solution, or adopting a multi-cloud strategy. And it's very important as well that the transition from on-prem to the cloud is as soft as possible, right? And as well as extracting data from on-prem, you don't want to interrupt the systems. You want to be as less intrusive as possible. So the solution that will move the data from on-prem to the cloud needs to be non-intrusive at all. And regarding specifically about moving the data in real time, so there are 5 challenges as we see it. The first one is, what technology should I use? Should I go for a classic data warehousing? Should I go for a data lake, or the more of a data lake house? And I have terabytes of data, so what should be the best strategy for moving that? And I don't want to impact anything on-premise as well. So my business is already, or the system supporting my business on-prem is already overloaded. It's already dimensioned for that kind of load, so I don't want to put more stress on that. So that's really important to take care when I'm onboarding data into the cloud. And how should I know that the data, once I move it into the cloud, I can trust on the data, is fit for purpose? How can I be sure about that? So these are some of the key challenges when you are moving data in real time into the cloud. And so you will be left with, let's say, 3 optimal analytic stores. The classic enterprise data warehousing still exists today, still very important today. The data lake based on Hadoop technology, distributed file system, or the modern data lake house, which is basically the combination of these 2, data warehousing and data lake. And so the data warehousing, it's about structured reports. It exists for more than 30 years. There was 2 emerging tools, Ralph Kimball, Bill Hyman more close to the transaction system, where the data is in more granular format, more close to the reporting, to the transaction reporting. And then Ralph Kimball with a multidimensional data model, Snowflake, more close to the business users, easy to do for the business users because the data was pre-aggregated in a more shape close to the business. And so you have these 2 types of school that you can follow, and then there are also vendors investing hardware on software like Teradata, NetEase, and Oracle with Exadata dedicated to this kind of enterprise data warehousing. And this imposes the write-on schema, so you need to transform the data according to the data model on your data warehousing. Because the next one, the data lake, is schema on reading, so you can just put all the data there. You don't worry about the type of the data, structure, semi-structure, binary data like flat, like videos and stuff, so you can put all the data. You just have to worry about when you are reading the data from, so it's reading on schema. And these also use distributed file systems, so you could put all your data there. You could do the old map reduce jobs to chunk data, so split the data in chunks and then process the data in chunks. And you'll have the granular data as well. This is really the way to go for the data scientists because they can run their machine learning algorithms on all those raw format data. And then the data lake house that emerged more recently, it's basically the combination of these 2 previous systems, right? So you'll have the, let's say, data lake in the middle, and then downstream you'll have a data warehousing, okay? Right. And then when you go into the cloud, you have multiple options. So if you think about the data warehousing, then you have Google BigQuery from Google, or AWS Redshift, or even building your own data warehousing using Oracle SQL Server, Snowflake, another one, Azure Synapse. Then if you go to data lake, S3, Azure Data Lake storage, for instance, so you have multiple options, and for data lake house, the Databricks, right? Or you could create your own, right? So there are multiple options, and these make things really difficult. And with that, I would like to just bring you, this is from a customer before acquiring HVR, and you can see that they have this spaghetti connectivity for data integration point to point, so multiple connections, meaning as well complexity to manage, different people with different skills needed. And then we were introduced to them, and we simplified a lot this connectivity, because HVR, as you can see there, can capture multiple sources, so it's extremely heterogeneous and can move into identical targets as well. So they standardize on HVR for doing this job. And then when you think about moving into into the cloud, you have to think about these 4 items. So first is about moving your existing data into your target in the cloud, then keep it in sync in real time, and then validate the data, and then the 4th one, actually innovate. That's the whole idea. It's not about having the same system that you have, right? Doing the same thing. The idea is to be able to innovate once you have the data in real time in the cloud. That's another customer. In this case, multiple SQL Server database and DB2 using HVR to move data into Postgres and S3. Another one, Schneider Electric. In this case, SQL Server to multiple SQL Server instances, and then with a failback. So you can create a bidirectional replications in real time with our solution as well. Right. And now I'd like just to go a little bit more in detail about our log-based CDC solution. Our solution reads the transaction logs from the database. So transaction logs of the database, I don't want to be too technical, but the transaction database logs exist for the purpose, if the database fails for any reason, it can recover from those transaction logs, right? So basically it only exists for that. So Oracle has its redo logs, transaction log for SQL Server, active logs for DB2. So for the database to be ACID compliant, atomic consistency and isolation durability, they need to have those transaction logs. And so we are able to mine those logs and to capture transactions from the committed transaction from those transaction logs and move it to the other side, to the other target, right? So this is a logical replication, meaning that you can choose which tables you want to replicate, and even from with each tables, what columns do you want to replicate. On top of that, you can enrich the data stream with extra data. So for instance, if on the target side, if you want to have a full history of your transactions, our solution is able to capture the before image of the changes, and so you could have a full log of all the updates, inserts, and deletes. So a delete, for instance, gets delete on the source, but on the target is inserted as a soft delete, so you have the history of that change. And so our solution is really non-intrusive. So there will be no impact, or the impact will be really minimum because we'll be reading the transactions from the logs. And so this means also low impact, secure, because the data in transit gets encrypted. This is really important as well. And this will provide real time. Just to give you a flavor of the supported technologies for sources and targets, you can see on the left-hand side all the sources, on the right-hand side all the targets. So we can capture them from any Oracle database, SAP system, SAP HANA, or SAP SEC as well, MySQL, MariaDB, Amazon S3 as well, IBM DB2 from mainframe, S400, or Linux or Windows. So all the main systems, we are able to do the same kind of process, log-based CDC from those sources. And then we can deliver it in all those targets, including Databricks, for instance, for your data lakehouse, or Snowflake, Google BigQuery. All of those are part of this portfolio, including our last one, the agent plugin. This is our SDK. If you want to ingest into a specific technology, we got you covered, all right? In terms of the architecture, very high level, so we have on the middle, this is our hub, HVR hub. So we install our software in a Linux or a Windows machine, right? It could be on the cloud or on-prem. You can decide that, so it's extremely flexible. And then we will capture real time from the sources, encrypted data, and send it to the target, right? Additionally to the tool, you can use it the first step, the refresh step. This is where you do the initial load. So imagine that you are moving data into Snowflake and then you don't have your tables there. We will create your tables. So we'll capture this table structure from Oracle, for instance, and create the tables on target for you, and we'll do the initial load. Those terabytes of data that you have will be pushing into the target. And then we do the CDC. As soon as the data gets, or the changes gets recorded on the Oracle database, they will be immediately sent to the target system. We also have on the same tool set the compare function. This is really important when you are migrating applications into the cloud, for instance, because you may want to double check the data if actually the data is the same on the target side before doing the switchover, for instance. And we have this compare function that will compare the data and it will repair the data if you want, okay? And to summarize, so the benefits of using HVR for real-time analytics, it reduced the transactional overload because, again, we use log-based CDC, okay? So we listen into the redo logs, the transaction logs, and capture those committed transactions. We can move large amounts of data, all right? So terabytes of data. We have customers generating terabytes of redo per day, and we are able to cope with that kind of volume. As I mentioned in the beginning, so our architecture is flexible, so you can scale out. For instance, we have customers installing our solution in AWS, for instance, and then they start with a tier, and then they can scale up that tier for the demands of the business if they have, right? So it's perfectly scalable. With that, you can, having the data in real time, then you can do your queries immediately, right? And you can create scenarios for instance like this. Let's imagine that you have your SAP system, for instance, or your Oracle database already overloaded, and you want to move away the query reporting that you have on that system. So with HVR, you could create operation data store and move the data in real time to that second database, and so you could move the query, the reports into that second instance. At the same time, that second instance could feed your data warehousing. So you could have your data warehousing with data in real time. So these are the kind of use cases that you can build using HVR. And it's very easy to deploy and maintain, so you don't need special skills. You know, a group of people with skills in HVR can address multiple technologies from source to target. And to conclude, I would like just to emphasize that we are just outside of this room, so we are just in front of you. So we'll be really pleased to have you guys there if you want to discuss any use case with us. Really happy to show the tool, go through any use case, do some advising if you want. We'll just be there for you guys if you want to just visit us, just in front of the doors there.